On March 23, 1964, race riots were raging in downtown Jacksonville, Florida. But Johnnie Mae Chappell was not concerned with those race riots. She wasn't a part of them. What she was doing that night was actually running up and down the road outside her town looking for her wallet that she had lost. Unfortunately, Mrs. Chappell would lose her life that night in an act of senseless violence because of the color of her skin. While Mrs. Chappell was on the side of the road with her flashlight, a car carrying 4 white men approached. These men had heard reports about the race riots and were out looking to get a black person. Seeing 3 black people on the side of the road, the man in the passenger side seat raised a gun and fired. Mrs. Chappell was shot in the stomach and died on the way to the hospital. As was the case with many innocent black victims during the Jim Crow era, the news media paid very little attention to this story. It was a side note in terms of the race riots. In fact, according to the detectives who eventually solved the case, no one on the local police force was actually assigned to investigate the case. Several months after the murder, Lee Cody and Donald Coleman were able to crack the case somewhat by chance. In August of 1964, 5 months after the murder, Cody and Coleman were approached by a young man named Wayne Chessman, who provided additional details about Mrs. Chappell's murder and implicated 3 other men. Elmer Cato, who was the driver of the car, James Alex Davis, who sat in the back seat with Chessman that night, and J.W. Rich, the shooter. After Cody and Coleman completed the investigation, the 4 men were arrested and charged with first-degree murder. However, the threads of justice began to unravel at that point. The 2 detectives claimed that they were berated by their commanding officer for investigating the crime, and they were subsequently removed from the case. In fact, the murder weapon mysteriously disappeared from the evidence room. Even so, there was a trial, but the all-white jury convicted Rich of the lesser charge of manslaughter. Rich was sentenced to 10 years in prison, but he only served 3, and all the charges against the other 3 men were dropped. While Mrs. Chappell's killers went largely unpunished for their crime, Cody and Coleman claimed they were persecuted for doing their job and trying to do the right thing. Both detectives were demoted and shortly thereafter were fired for insubordination, which they claim was a result of making charges of racism and corruption within the police force. Additionally, unlike many of the countless victims of racial violence, Johnnie Mae Chappell will not be one of the forgotten or unknown. Her name was added to the Civil Rights Memorial in Montgomery, Alabama in 2000. Also in 2005, the Florida legislature honored Mrs. Chappell by renaming a section of the highway where she was murdered the Johnnie Mae Chappell Parkway. The memory of Mrs. Chappell serves as a powerful reminder of the hatred and brutal violence that robbed so many innocent individuals of their lives based solely on the color of their skin.